What would you do if your home became a battlefield? Imagine the tension, the fear, and the courage it takes to face a formidable enemy. Today we dive into the gripping tale of Jael, a woman whose bravery turned the tide of war. Welcome to a story that transcends time, weaving themes of strength, strategy, and faith into a dramatic narrative. Set in the ancient land of Canaan, a region fraught with conflict and oppression, the Israelites found themselves under the heavy yoke of a tyrannical general named Sisera. The air was thick with despair as the sound of war echoed across the hills. The people felt powerless, trapped in a cycle of defeat. Amidst this chaos, one woman would rise to challenge the very fabric of their plight. Jael, a seemingly ordinary woman, lived in a tent nestled in the rugged terrain of the desert, but beneath her calm exterior lay a heart full of determination. She was a woman of her time, shaped by the trials of her people, yet fiercely independent. With each passing day, she witnessed the suffering of her kin, and her spirit burned with a desire for justice. She was not just a passive observer, she longed to play a pivotal role in the tides of history. But as Sisera's forces closed in, a darkness loomed over her home, a sense of urgency and danger that threatened to engulf her. Would she remain silent, or would she seize her moment? The stakes were high, and the choices she faced weighed heavily on her heart. Tension escalated, and the world around her seemed to hold its breath. Stay with us as we unravel this extraordinary story of courage, a tale where a tent peg becomes a weapon of destiny. What happens next will leave you on the edge of your seat. In a world where battles were fought with swords and shields, how does a single woman change the course of history with a mere tent peg? This is the gripping tale of Jael, a figure whose courage and cunning turned the tide in an ancient war. The setting is a tumultuous time in Israel, where oppression and strife seem to rule the day. Enemies lurk like shadows, and the cries of the oppressed echo through the valleys. In such chaos, Jael becomes a beacon of unexpected bravery. As we journey through this biblical narrative, we'll uncover not just Jael's actions, but the heart of a woman who defied societal norms. Picture her, a housewife tucked away in her tent, surrounded by the simplicity of domestic life. Yet within her beats the heart of a warrior. Her motivations are layered. She yearns for peace in her land, but she also feels the weight of her people's suffering. This internal conflict shapes her character, blending strength with vulnerability. Now let's delve into the pressure she faces. The mighty army of Sisera, a general feared by many, looms large. Jael lives in a world where women are often sidelined, their voices unheard. But what if she refused to be defined by her gender? The tension thickens. Jael's mind races with possibilities as the fate of her people hangs in the balance. As we explore this riveting narrative, stay tuned. Jael's story is only beginning. With each turn of events, the stakes rise, leading to a moment that will leave you breathless. Join us as we witness this extraordinary woman rise to the occasion, challenging the norm and etching her name in history. What drives her? What will she ultimately choose? The answers await, and they may just surprise you. In the ancient land of Canaan, a tale unfolds that's drenched in courage, cunning, and a fierce desire for freedom. Imagine a time when war raged across the dusty plains, and the cries of the oppressed echoed through the valleys. The Israelites, once a proud nation, found themselves crushed under the iron grip of their enemies. They were trapped, caught in a cycle of conflict, longing for liberation. But what if I told you that the key to their salvation lay in the hands of a woman? Stay till the end, because the story of Jael in the tent peg will leave you breathless. To understand Jael's extraordinary act, we must first step back into the historical tapestry of this era. The Israelites had been wandering for years, fighting for their identity and survival. They had witnessed the rise and fall of judges, leaders who guided them through turbulent times. But the situation was dire. The Canaanites, led by the fierce General Sisera, had taken control. The oppression was not just physical, it was psychological, bearing the hopes of the people under despair. In this world, women were often seen as mere shadows of men, their roles confined to the home. They were caregivers, nurturers, and wives, but rarely were they viewed as warriors. However, the fabric of society was woven with strong, resilient women who held their families together amidst chaos. They were the unsung heroines, quietly shaping history with their resolve. The culture at this time was steeped in patriarchal traditions. Men were the warriors, the protectors, the leaders. Women had their place, often relegated to the background, their voices stifled. Yet, in the heart of every woman there burned a fierce spirit, one that yearned to rise above the constraints of society. The pressure to conform was immense, yet there were those who dared to defy the odds. They whispered tales of bravery, of women who had taken up arms when their men were too afraid to fight. As the Israelites cried out for help, they turned to their God, seeking deliverance from their oppressors. The ground trembled with their prayers, and in the midst of their turmoil, a woman named Deborah emerged. Deborah was not just a prophetess, she was a leader, a warrior in her own right. Her courage was infectious, igniting a spark of hope among the people. But even with her guidance, the battle against Sisera loomed large, overshadowing their dreams of freedom. The Israelites were caught in a web of fear. Sisera's army was brutal, a force to be reckoned with. The clash of swords and the cries of the fallen filled the air, creating an atmosphere thick with dread. Nightmares haunted the minds of the Israelites as they envisioned the consequences of defeat. They lived in constant anxiety, their lives dictated by the whims of their enemies. It was a time when courage was a rare commodity, and survival often took precedence over valor. Amidst this turmoil, Jael lived in her tent, a seemingly ordinary woman with an extraordinary destiny. She was married to Heber, a Kenite, whose allegiance to the Israelites was tenuous at best. The Kenites were known for their nomadic lifestyle, drifting from place to place, always seeking refuge from the conflicts that surrounded them. Despite the chaos, Jael's home was a sanctuary, a place where she could nurture her family and find solace. The tension of the world outside seeped into her home, but Jael was not just a passive observer. She was a woman of strength, a keeper of her family's legacy. In her heart, she knew that the time for action was drawing near. She had heard the whispers of the oppressed, the cries of her people, and deep within, she felt the stirrings of a fierce resolve. The world around her was filled with uncertainty. The Israelites had suffered long enough, and Jael felt the weight of their pain. She understood the stakes, a fight for freedom, a battle between despair and hope. Yet she also understood the role expected of her. Could she rise above societal norms? Could she be the change her people desperately needed? These questions plagued her thoughts, simmering beneath the surface. As Sisera's men marched through the land, the conflict was palpable. Fear hung heavy in the air, and whispers of betrayal and courage intertwined. Jael stood at the crossroads of destiny, torn between the expectations of her culture and the call of her spirit. A storm of emotions raged within her: fear, anger, determination. She felt the eyes of her ancestors upon her, urging her to act, to rise, to fight. This was a world where the stakes were high, where every decision could tip the balance between life and death. The Israelites were on the brink, and Jael was about to step into a role that would defy the very fabric of her society. The possibility of change loomed large, but so did the fear of retribution. What would her actions mean for her family, her people, and her legacy? As we delve deeper into Jael's journey, we prepare ourselves for the clash of fate and choice. The weight of her decision looms ahead, an unseen force guiding her towards an extraordinary act. With the fate of her people hanging in the balance, Jael prepares to embrace her destiny. The stage is set, and the next chapter of this incredible story is about to unfold. So, as we continue, keep in mind the fierce spirit of Jael, a woman who would not be defined by her circumstances, but rather who would redefine them. Her journey is just beginning, and the tension is palpable. What will she choose to do? Stay tuned, for the culmination of this tale will leave you on the edge of your seat. The heart of the story awaits, and it's filled with unexpected bravery and profound revelations. In the heart of Canaan, surrounded by rugged hills and whispering winds, lived Jael. A woman of remarkable strength, she was not just a simple tent dweller. No, Jael was a fierce embodiment of resilience and spirit in a world dominated by men. Picture her, a woman with sun-kissed skin, calloused hands from hard work, and eyes that sparkled with fierce determination. Jael's tent was a sanctuary, a space filled with warmth and laughter, where the aroma of cooking lent a sense of comfort. But it was also a stronghold against the encroaching shadows of conflict. The very ground she stood on was steeped in turmoil. The Israelites were oppressed, their spirits bruised under the heavy boot of Sisera, the ruthless general of King Jabin's army. Jael was acutely aware of the struggles around her, the soft murmurings of fear that echoed among her people. Yet she maintained a sense of hope, a flicker of light amidst the darkness. Her upbringing was unique. Raised in a tent, surrounded by the nomadic lifestyle that defined her people, Jael learned to be resourceful. She was skilled at weaving and cooking, but also at listening. The stories shared around the campfire shaped her understanding of the world. She absorbed the tales of heroes and the wisdom of the past, forging a strong identity. While society often underplayed women's roles, Jael felt a stirring within her, a call to be more than just a bystander in the unfolding drama of her people's lives. Every day she witnessed the struggles of the men who left to fight, the sorrow of mothers bidding farewell to their sons, and the heavy silence that fell over the camp when the news of battles lost reached their ears. This was not just a fight for land, it was a fight for survival, for dignity. Jael's heart ached for her people, yet she felt an undercurrent of frustration. Why should they suffer? Why should they live in fear? In the quiet moments of the day, while tending to her chores, Jael often found herself lost in thought. As she worked, her mind would wander to visions of a brighter future. What if she could change the narrative? What if she could be the one to alter the course of her people's history? These thoughts ignited a fire within her, a burgeoning desire for action. But fear was a familiar companion. Would her desires be seen as boldness or foolishness? Would she be cast aside or celebrated? These uncertainties loomed large, yet each time she felt the weight of despair, she would look around her, at the women who stood strong, at the children who played amidst the struggle, at the men who returned weary but unbroken. They were her motivation, her reason to be audacious. The world around her was steeped in tradition, where men held the reins of power, and women were often relegated to the shadows. Yet Jael had a fierce independence that set her apart. She didn't conform to the expectations placed upon her. Instead, she embraced the strength that lay within her. She was a daughter, a wife, a mother. But more than that, she was a warrior in her own right. Each day, she donned the armor of perseverance, ready to face whatever lay ahead. Culturally, the role of women in Jael's time was complex. They were revered as caretakers, yet their voices were often muffled. Jael wrestled with the duality of her existence, tender and tough, nurturing and fierce. She felt a burning desire to break free from the confines of societal norms. Why should they not have the power to change their fate? It was this very thought that fueled her spirit. The weight of her choices loomed over her. Deep within, she knew that one decision could alter her life and the lives of many. She pondered the significance of her actions. Could she rise to the occasion? Could she be the change? Every moment of contemplation shaped her resolve. As she wove through her daily tasks, her mind played out scenarios, each more daring than the last. What if she took a stand? What if she refused to be sidelined? The possibilities danced around her, igniting a passion she had yet to fully comprehend. With each heartbeat, the pulse of destiny thrummed louder, demanding attention. She often gazed at the horizon, wondering about the battles that raged beyond her sight. The harsh reality of war contrasted sharply with her dreams of peace. In the quiet of her tent, she would close her eyes and envision a world where her children could play freely, where the shadows of fear would fade into the light of hope. Amidst the struggle and strife, Jael also found joy in the little things. The laughter of her children, the warmth of the sun on her skin, and the cool breeze that swept through her tent were reminders of life's beauty. These moments grounded her, providing the strength she needed to face the uncertainties ahead. Her heart was a tapestry woven with threads of hope, fear, and unwavering resolve. Each day was a dance between the mundane and the monumental, as she navigated the expectations of her world while nurturing the wild dreams that fluttered within her. Jael was poised on the brink of something extraordinary. Though the winds of change whistled around her, she remained steadfast, ready to confront whatever would come. Would she rise to meet the challenge? Would she answer the call of destiny? The echoes of her inner world reverberated with promise, setting the stage for the pivotal moments yet to unfold. Stay with us as we journey deeper into the heart of this captivating tale. What lies ahead? A storm of conflict, a clash of wills, and a woman ready to seize her moment. The next chapter awaits. What would you do if your safety depended on a single moment? Picture the tension thickening in the air, the weight of fear pressing down on your chest, and the stakes rising as adversaries loom closer. This is the heart of our story, where courage and cunning intertwine in a world teetering on the brink of chaos. As we delve into the life of Jael, a seemingly ordinary woman who dared to challenge the might of a general, we uncover a tale that is as much about inner strength as it is about the external battles fought. Stick around until the end. You won't want to miss how this gripping narrative unfolds. In ancient Canaan, the landscape was rugged and harsh. Life was a constant struggle against nature and the threats that loomed beyond the horizon. Villages were often isolated, surrounded by hills that acted as both a refuge and a trap. The people of Canaan lived under the shadow of oppression, their spirits weighed down by the iron grip of their enemies. The Canaanites had settled into a cycle of despair, with tensions simmering like a pot about to boil over. The society was patriarchal, where men were warriors, and women were often relegated to the shadows, their voices seldom heard. But in this turbulent time, a shift was brewing, one that would shake the very foundations of their existence. Imagine the whispers of the wind carrying tales of violence, of raiding parties that struck fear into the hearts of the brave. The air crackled with uncertainty. The chariots of Sisera, the commander of the Canaanite army, thundered like approaching storms, leaving destruction in their wake. His reputation was forged in blood, and his name alone could silence the bravest of souls. Yet the people of Israel were beginning to stir, their hearts ignited with a flicker of hope. They prayed for deliverance, yearning for a hero to rise among them. Little did they know, this hero would not wear armor or wield a sword. Instead, she would be a woman with a heart full of resolve. Jael, in her simple tent, found herself in a world that dictated her every move. She was no stranger to the struggles of her people. Her days were filled with the mundane tasks that women were expected to perform: cooking, weaving, and caring for her family. Yet, within her, a fierce spirit simmered, yearning for something greater. She was aware of her surroundings, the weight of oppression hanging over her like a dark cloud. Despite the limitations placed upon her, she was not just a bystander in the unfolding events around her. Jael longed to contribute, to make a mark in a world that often overlooked her. As tensions escalated, the Israelites found themselves cornered, desperate for a miracle. Sisera's forces were relentless, and the fear of defeat hung over them like a noose. The cries of the oppressed echoed in Jael's heart, igniting a fire that could no longer be contained. She knew the stakes. She felt the pulse of her people, their hopes intertwined with her fate. Yet, the battle was not just external. Jael faced an internal struggle as well. Would she dare to step out of the expected role? Could she challenge the norms that defined her existence? In the quiet moments of her life, Jael often pondered her purpose, while her hands worked tirelessly as her mind raced with questions. What if she could be more than a caretaker? What if she could be a catalyst for change? The weight of her potential pressed down upon her, urging her to act. But how? The answer was as elusive as the winds that swept through her tent. With each passing day, the tension escalated. The air was thick with anticipation, and the people of Canaan began to whisper about rebellion. They spoke of a promise, a prophecy that foretold of deliverance. Jael listened closely, her heart racing at the thought of a hero rising from within. What if that hero could be her? The thought excited and terrified her in equal measure. As Sisera's forces closed in, every heartbeat felt like a countdown. She could sense the storm brewing, not just in the skies, but within her very soul. The moment of reckoning approached. The earth trembled beneath the weight of Sisera's army, their chariots carving through the landscape like a knife through flesh. Jael's heart raced as she felt the vibrations of their approach. Each rumble echoed her own fears and desires. What would happen when they arrived? Would she remain a silent observer, or would she rise to the occasion? In her heart, she knew this was her chance to step into the light, to embrace the strength she had always felt but never acknowledged. The thought of Sisera, that relentless general, sent chills down her spine. He was a man who had crushed many underfoot, but within her, a flicker of defiance sparked, illuminating the shadows of doubt. Could she truly confront such a formidable foe? As the day of confrontation drew near, Jael felt the weight of the world on her shoulders. The very air crackled with tension, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. She was caught in the web of fate, her heart pounding with the rhythm of impending conflict. The call for action echoed in her mind, urging her to make a choice. What would she do when the moment arrived? With Sisera's army nearing, Jael stood at the precipice of destiny. She could almost hear the whispers of her ancestors, urging her to embrace the calling that pulsed through her veins. It was a moment that would define her, a chance to weave her story into the tapestry of her people. Would she seize this opportunity, or let it slip away like sand through her fingers? Stay tuned as we delve into the next chapter of Jael's extraordinary journey. The time for action is approaching, and the climax is just around the corner. What unfolds next will change the course of history forever. What would you do if a powerful enemy, weary and desperate, sought refuge in your home? Picture the weight of that choice. The heart races, the mind races faster. In our story, Jael stands at that very crossroads. Will she protect her family's safety, or will she take a stand against a juggernaut of oppression? As the sun begins to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows over Jael's tent, she stands at a precipice. The air, thick with dust and tension, holds its breath, waiting for her decision. Outside, the rumble of the Canaanite army echoes ominously, a reminder of the chaos that has invaded her world. Inside the tent, Sisera, the general of that army, lies asleep, oblivious to the storm brewing around him and the storm within her. Jael's heart is torn. She is a woman of faith, a woman of her people. Her husband Heber has allied with the Canaanites, a choice that sends ripples of conflict through her very being. How could he side with those who oppress her kin? This allegiance is a burden she carries alone. Yet here, in this moment, she has the chance to tip the scales. She knows the stories, the tales of heroism passed down through generations. She has heard how women like her have changed the course of history. But could she be one of them? The evening air is alive with tension. Jael paces, her thoughts racing faster than her feet. Should she act against the very man who could bring ruin to her people? What if she fails? What if she is caught? The stakes are high and the weight of her community rests on her shoulders. Yet another voice whispers, a voice of courage, a voice that stirs her very soul. The tent feels both like a sanctuary and a prison. With each passing moment, Sisera's trust in her grows. He believes he is safe, lulled into a false sense of security. But Jael knows better. Each heartbeat echoes her conflict. She could simply remain silent, allow the Canaanite general to leave, and hope for the best. But deep down, she understands that this may be her only opportunity. As she considers her options, the sounds of the world outside seep into her thoughts. The soldiers are marching, their boots striking the earth with a rhythm that speaks of power and oppression. Jael clenches her fists, her resolve hardening. She feels the weight of her ancestors' prayers, their hopes for freedom. They are calling out to her now, urging her to act. What will she choose? The image of her family flashes before her eyes, her children, her loved ones. Would they be safe if she turns her back on this man? The fear of the unknown tugs at her heart, but the fear of inaction grips her like a vice. The tension builds like a storm, clouds gathering in her mind. In this quiet moment, she finds clarity. Jael realizes that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision to act despite it. With each breath, she can feel her heart align with a purpose greater than herself. She must be the one to make a difference. She must be the one to stand up, to fight back against the darkness encroaching on her world. Jael takes a deep breath, steadying herself. The tent, once a place of refuge, transforms into a battlefield in her mind. She knows the risks, the potential consequences. But Sisera's presence also represents an opportunity, a chance to reclaim her home, her people, and her dignity. It is a heavy burden to bear, but she feels the strength of her ancestors behind her, guiding her every step. With a quick glance at the sleeping general, she gathers her resolve. The tools of her trade lie within reach. The tent peg, a simple instrument of her daily labor, now becomes a symbol of her defiance. It's unassuming, yet so potent in her hands. It's a reminder that sometimes the most powerful weapons are the ones we least expect. As she inches closer, the shadows play tricks on her mind, but she is determined. This is not just another day, it's a turning point. The world outside may be chaotic, but here and now, she holds the reins of her destiny. The choice is hers, and she understands the weight of it. Each second feels like an eternity, stretching out before her, filled with potential and peril. Her heart pounds in her chest as she considers her next move. Will she be remembered as a bystander, or will she emerge as a hero? The question lingers in the air, heavy and electric. She knows that once she makes this decision, there's no turning back. As Jael finally squares her shoulders, she feels a wave of clarity wash over her. The path ahead is fraught with danger, but she is ready to embrace it. The chorus of her ancestors rises in her heart, urging her forward. She is not just a woman in a tent. She is Jael, a warrior in her own right. And so the moment arrives, the choice made, the intent clear. Jael prepares herself for what comes next. The tension crackles like a live wire, the stakes higher than ever. This is the critical moment in her story, the decision that will change everything. Stay tuned as we delve deeper into the climax of Jael's journey, where courage meets action, and history is forever altered. What lies ahead will test her resolve in ways she cannot yet imagine. What would you do if faced with a life-altering decision? Imagine the weight of destiny hanging in the balance. In the ancient lands of Canaan, Jael was about to face such a moment, with her home transformed into a battleground. She stood at a crossroads where courage and cunning would dictate the fate of her people. This isn't just a story of survival, it's a tale of bold choices that echo through history. Stay with us till the end as we unravel this gripping saga of bravery and resolve. Amidst the rugged hills and sun-baked earth of Canaan, a complex tapestry of society unfolded. The people lived under constant threat from formidable enemies. The Canaanites, known for their advanced chariots and strategic warfare, cast a long shadow over the Israelites. Life was fraught with uncertainty, where each sunrise could bring the clang of swords and the cries of war. Women, often relegated to the background, bore the brunt of these conflicts, their voices seldom heard in the grand tales of heroism and valor. Yet, women like Jael navigated this turbulent world with resilience. Their roles, while traditionally confined to the home, were crucial in the unseen battles of daily life. The social norms of the time dictated that women were caretakers, mothers, and supporters. They were expected to uphold the hearth, waiting for their men to return from war, often never knowing if they would see them again. But beneath those expectations lay a current of strength and determination. The Israelites lived in a society bound by faith and tradition, where the guidance of elders and prophets shaped their decisions. The teachings of past leaders resonated deeply within them, reminding the people of their covenant with God. In the face of oppression, they often turned to prayer, seeking divine intervention in their struggles. Yet, as the hammering of war drums echoed, many felt abandoned, wrestling with doubt and fear. While the men rallied in defense of their homeland, the women's contributions often went unnoticed. They were the backbone, the unseen warriors, holding the community together. Jael, in particular, embodied this spirit. She was not merely a passive figure. She was a woman of action, driven by a fierce loyalty to her people and a deep-seated desire for freedom. As the tension escalated, Jael's heart pulsed with a mix of fear and determination. Her home was a sanctuary, yet it was also a target. With the enemy's General Sisera seeking refuge within her walls, the stakes had never been higher. The conflict was no longer distant, it was personal. This was her moment, a crossroads where her choices would define her legacy. Sitting in her tent, Jael could hear the distant thunder of battle. Each clash of swords sent shivers down her spine. Would Sisera's arrival bring salvation, or would it spell doom for her family? The air was thick with uncertainty. She could feel the weight of her ancestors' expectations resting on her shoulders. In a world that often silenced women, she felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps she could be the one to change the narrative. As she prepared her tent, tension rippled through her veins. The flickering flames of her cooking fire danced like her restless thoughts. What if Sisera was not just a general, but an opportunity? An opportunity to shift the course of history. Jael knew that she couldn't wait for someone else to save her people. This was her moment to act, her chance to rise against the tide of oppression. When Sisera stumbled into her tent, exhaustion etched across his face. Jael's heart raced. Here was the enemy, a man who had wreaked havoc on her land. But he was also a man vulnerable in his moment of need. She offered him milk, a gesture of hospitality, masking the storm brewing within her. This was her chance to turn the tides of fate. As he settled under her roof, seeking refuge from the relentless pursuit of his enemies, Jael's mind spun with possibilities. The whispers of her conscience urged her to act. Each second felt like an eternity as she weighed her options. The very thought of betrayal danced across her mind, igniting a fire within her. Could she become the hero her people needed? Could she dare to defy the expectations placed upon her? The tent felt smaller with each passing moment, the air thick with tension. Jael glanced at the tools around her. Simple, yet powerful. The tent peg stood out, a symbol of her home, but also a potential weapon. As Sisera lay vulnerable, trusting, slumbering just beyond her reach, she felt a surge of clarity. This was not just about her. It was about her people, her legacy, and the future they could forge together. But the decision was heavy. What if she acted and failed? What if she succeeded? The consequences were monumental. In that moment, Jael grappled with doubt. Her heart raced as she envisioned the joy of freedom, the end of oppression. But with that joy came the knowledge that she would be forever marked by her actions. There would be no turning back. With her heart pounding and her mind racing, Jael took a breath. This was her moment, her decision. She had the power to change history. She could be the woman who nailed a general, who stood up for her people, and who carved her name into the annals of courage. In the quiet of the tent, the world outside faded, leaving only the sound of her heartbeat. Jael felt the weight of the tent peg in her hand. It wasn't just a tool, it was a symbol of her resolve. This was the moment where courage met opportunity, where the mundane transformed into the extraordinary. As the night deepened, the air crackled with potential, charged with the energy of unspoken destinies. Jael stood at the precipice of her fate. The choice before her was monumental, a decision that would echo through time. Would she step into the shadows, or would she seize the moment and change the course of her people's history forever? With every fiber of her being, Jael prepared to commit to a path fraught with danger and honor. The critical decision loomed, and with it, the promise of a new dawn. What would happen next would not only define her, but could also alter the future of her entire nation. As we leave Jael at this pivotal moment, the tension lingers thick in the air. The stage is set for a confrontation that will shake the foundations of her world. What will she choose? Stay with us as the climax of this tale approaches, revealing the incredible courage that lies within this remarkable woman. As the sun dipped low on the horizon, casting an orange glow over the rugged hills of Canaan, the air was thick with anticipation. Jael, with her heart racing, felt the weight of destiny pressing down on her shoulders. This was it, the moment she had been preparing for, without even knowing it. She stood at the threshold of her tent, the cool evening breeze brushing against her skin, mingling with the warmth of her resolve. What would happen next would echo through the ages. In the dim light, Sisera lay oblivious, a fierce warrior now reduced to a weary fugitive. The tension was palpable. Jael's mind raced with the gravity of the choice before her. This was no ordinary military encounter. This was a battle for survival, a battle that would resonate in the annals of history. The fate of her people hung in the balance. The sound of distant thunder rumbled, a warning from the heavens. It matched the storm brewing inside her. What if he wakes, she thought. What if he remembers who I am? What if he sees me as an enemy? But in that moment, she pushed those fears aside. She had to act. This was a crucial juncture, one that demanded courage and cunning. Jael stepped into this tent, the canvas fabric fluttering around her, wrapping her in an intimate embrace. She looked at Sisera, sprawled out on her mat, oblivious to the storm that was brewing not just outside, but within her heart. He was a man of war, a general, a symbol of oppression. Yet here he lay, vulnerable and desperate. A flicker of doubt crossed her mind, but she quickly extinguished it. This was her chance. The tension escalated as she approached him. The silence was deafening, punctuated only by the sound of Sisera's labored breathing. She could see the beads of sweat glistening on his brow, the signs of fatigue etched across his face. He was a lion, but now he was cornered. Jael's heart raced as she considered the implications of her next move. Who would believe that a woman could bring down such a fearsome warrior, she mused. The thought fueled her determination. This was not merely about her, it was about every woman who had been silenced, every voice that had been ignored. It was about rising against tyranny and claiming her rightful power. With every step towards him, Jael felt a surge of purpose. She reached for the tent peg, its cold metal glinting in the fading light. It was both a tool and a weapon, a symbol of her resolve. In her hands, it felt heavy with significance. This is my moment, she thought, my act of defiance. The air crackled with energy as she knelt beside Sisera. He stirred, the faintest flicker of awareness crossing his features. "Who goes there?" he mumbled, his voice thick with sleep. Jael's heart pounded in her chest. This was it, the moment of truth. "Shh, rest," she whispered, her voice smooth as silk, laced with an undertone of authority. It was an invitation, a lullaby, a deceptive calm before the storm. As she leaned closer, she could smell the remnants of battle on him, a mingling of sweat and dirt. It filled her with both disgust and determination. She wanted to rid her world of this scourge, to reclaim her home. In that heartbeat, time seemed to stretch. Jael's thoughts raced. Would this act of bravery save her people? Or would it plunge her deeper into danger? Was she prepared to become the woman who would forever be known for this? Would history remember her as a hero or a villain? The weight of her decision pressed down on her, but she knew there was no turning back. Sisera's eyes fluttered open, still dazed, and in that instant, Jael seized the moment. The tent peg in her hand felt like an extension of herself, a necessary tool to forge her destiny. She raised it above him, her heart pounding like a drum, each beat echoing her resolve. The world outside faded into a blur, the sounds of battle and chaos replaced by a deafening silence that surrounded them both. And then, with a swift, decisive motion, she drove the tent peg down, piercing the earth and Sisera's skull alike, sealing the fate of the man who had brought so much suffering. The act was brutal, swift, and decisive. It was a clash of wills, a moment of empowerment that would resonate through time. As she withdrew her hand, the world rushed back in, the reality of her actions crashing over her like a wave. She had done it. She had transformed from a woman of the tent into a warrior of legend. The adrenaline surged through her veins, a mix of triumph and horror. The silent tent reverberated with the echoes of her defiance. But even in that moment of victory, Jael knew the battle was far from over. She stood breathless as the weight of her actions settled upon her. The war may have taken Sisera, but the path ahead was still fraught with challenges and uncertainty. What would the Israelites think? Would they see her as the savior or merely a woman who dared to act? In that fleeting moment of clarity, Jael felt the ground shift beneath her. She was no longer just Jael, the wife of Heber. She was a symbol of resistance, a beacon of hope. The tent around her felt both like a sanctuary and a battlefield. The stakes had never been higher, and as the shadows deepened, she braced herself for the storm that was sure to follow. The climax of her journey had arrived, a pivotal moment that would change not just her life, but the fate of her people. She had taken a stand, and now the echoes of her actions would reverberate through the ages. Stay tuned as we explore the aftermath of this monumental event and reflect on the lessons woven into this extraordinary tale. What does Jael's story teach us about courage, faith, and the power of a single act? Let's delve deeper into the narrative that has captivated hearts for generations. As the dust settled over the battlefield, a heavy silence enveloped the land of Canaan. The echoes of conflict faded, replaced by the soft rustle of leaves and the distant call of birds returning to their nests. Jael stood alone in her tent, the weight of her actions pressing down upon her. The air was thick with both victory and uncertainty. What had she done? A single moment had changed everything. She had not only altered the course of history, but also her own fate. Jael looked at the tent peg resting on the ground, its once gleaming surface now dulled by the shadows of dusk. It was an ordinary object, yet it had become a symbol of her bravery and cunning. In a world dominated by men, where battles were fought with swords and shields, she wielded a tent peg as her weapon. It was a reminder that strength comes in many forms. But what did it mean for her? The triumph over Sisera was monumental. The enemy general lay defeated, and the Israelites were free from oppression. Yet, as Jael surveyed the quiet aftermath, she felt a sense of solitude creep in. She had acted decisively, but it was a decision that would forever mark her as both a heroine and a pariah. Was the price of freedom measured in blood? What did it mean to be a woman in this time, to take such a bold step? Her heart raced with conflicting emotions. Thoughts swirled in her mind like a tempest. She had saved her people, yes, but at what cost to herself? The stories would be told for generations, songs would be sung, and yet she felt isolated in her victory. Her neighbors would celebrate her, but would they ever truly understand the turmoil within her? The fear, the doubt, the resolve, these were not easily shared. Jael stepped outside her tent, gazing at the horizon where the sun was setting, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. With each breath, she felt the weight of her choices. The stars began to twinkle above, and she pondered the idea of fate. Was this her destiny? To be the woman who nailed a general? She could feel the weight of the tent peg still in her hands, a haunting reminder of her actions. But it was also a badge of honor. In the distance, the cries of celebration started to rise. Her people were rejoicing, their chains of bondage broken. Jael knew that she played a pivotal role in this liberation. Yet her heart was heavy. She remembered the fear in Sisera's eyes, the desperation in his voice as he begged for mercy. Was she a liberator or a murderer? The lines blurred in the dim twilight. She sought comfort in the stories of her ancestors. Women like Deborah, who led with wisdom and courage. Women like Miriam, who danced with joy after the crossing of the Red Sea. Jael felt their spirits guiding her, whispering that strength was not just about physical prowess, but also about making the hard choices. Perhaps her act of bravery would inspire others to rise up against injustice, to take action when it mattered most. In that moment of reflection, Jael realized that her actions resonated far beyond the battlefield. They spoke to the core of human experience, the struggle between fear and courage, the quest for justice, and the sacrifices one must make for the greater good. She had become a part of the narrative of her people, interwoven into their history. The tales of her bravery would be shared around fires, carrying the message of hope, resilience, and the power of one determined soul. The night deepened around her, and a sense of peace began to wash over Jael. She understood that her story would not only be one of violence and bloodshed, but also of empowerment. It would be a story of a woman who stood up when others faltered, who seized the moment to change her world. The fear that once had gripped her heart began to dissipate, replaced by a burgeoning sense of purpose. Jael's eyes shimmered with newfound resolve. She would not shy away from being the heroine of her own story. There would always be those who questioned her choices, who would see her actions through a lens of criticism. But she had a duty to herself and her people, a duty to remind them that courage often comes from unexpected places. She would embrace her role, wear it like armor, and let it empower her to stand tall in the face of adversity. As the stars illuminated the night sky, Jael whispered a prayer of gratitude. She thanked the Almighty for the strength to act, for the wisdom to discern right from wrong, and for the courage to face the consequences. The world may have viewed her as an outlier, but she had carved her place in it. The whispers of her name would echo through the ages, a testament to the strength of women who dare to take action. With a heart full of determination, Jael turned back towards her tent. She was ready to share her story, to inspire others to rise, to act, and to believe that sometimes a single act of bravery can change the course of history. The dawn of a new day awaited, and with it, the promise of renewal. Her journey was just beginning, and she was prepared to embrace whatever lay ahead, armed with the knowledge that courage, no matter how small, can indeed move mountains. As the sun began to rise in the distance, illuminating the land with rays of hope, Jael took a deep breath. The world was waking up, and so was she. The true battle was not just against oppression, but for the hearts and minds of her people. A battle she was ready to face. And in that moment, she knew she would always stand tall, just like the tent pegs that held her home, firmly rooted in the ground, unyielding against the winds of change. As we close the curtain on Jael's incredible story, we're left with a tapestry woven from threads of bravery, faith, and the power of one woman's decisive action. Imagine a world where the stakes were life or death, where the cries of battle echoed through the hills, and yet, amidst this chaos, a single tent peg became the instrument of deliverance. Jael didn't just defend her home, she reshaped the fate of a nation. Her actions remind us that courage often takes unexpected forms. A simple act, fueled by faith and determination, can change the course of history. Jael's story challenges our perceptions of strength. It is not always about wielding swords or commanding armies. Sometimes it's about standing firm in our convictions and being willing to act when the moment demands it. In the shadows of her tent, she embodied the spirit of resilience. The world may not always recognize the quiet strength of women like Jael, but her legacy speaks loudly across centuries. Her name is etched in the annals of history, a symbol of empowerment and defiance against oppression. As we reflect on this narrative, consider how you might apply Jael's lessons in your own life. Are there moments when you can be bold, when you can stand up for what's right, even if it seems daunting? Each of us has the potential to make a difference, just as she did. If you found an inspiration in Jael's tale, don't keep it to yourself. Share this video with others who might need a reminder of their own strength. And for more stories that illuminate the profound lessons of the Bible, subscribe to our channel, Biblical Journey. Together, let's explore the rich tapestry of faith, courage, and divine purpose in our lives. Thank you for joining us today. As we draw the curtain on Jael's audacious tale, one thing becomes crystal clear. Courage often wears the most unexpected face. In a world dominated by male warriors and towering generals, it was a woman, a simple housewife, who changed the course of history with a tent peg. Can you imagine the weight of that choice? The very act of taking a life, especially a mighty general's, wasn't just a matter of survival. It was a declaration of defiance against oppression. Jael's story resonates even today. It serves as a powerful reminder that bravery doesn't always manifest in grand gestures. Sometimes it's in the quiet resolve to act when the moment calls for it. She faced a life-altering decision, one that could have cost her everything. Yet, in that fleeting moment of fear and desperation, she became a beacon of hope. Her actions sparked a rebellion that would echo through generations, illustrating the profound impact of one determined individual. So what can we learn from Jael? Each of us possesses the power to reshape our circumstances, to challenge the status quo. Even when the odds seem insurmountable, when faced with our own battles, may we find the strength to act decisively and with conviction. As we reflect on this gripping account from Judges 4, let it inspire you to embrace your own inner warrior. Whether you find yourself in a position of power or vulnerability, remember that your choices matter. They can shift the tides and inspire others. If Jael can transform her fear into action, so can we. So what's your next step? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if you found this story enlightening, don't forget to subscribe to Biblical Journey for more captivating narratives from the scriptures. Together, let's explore the stories that shape our faith and resilience.